Fiverr fam, what up? Welcome back to Stitches and Starlight. My name is Tashiana, but you can call me Tashi because that's what all my friends do, and we're friends now. Welcome back to my podcast where we talk about what I am making. There is Fiverr chaos all the time, but today we're not doing that. So we're going to skip the introduction. I'm assuming that if you're here, you know who I am. I share my home with my husband and the Kittens, and today we're gonna do a Q&A. I thought it'd be fun to let you guys get to know me better. There are so many more Fiverr humans on the internet that are watching me. My whole heart. You guys have no idea what the emotions are. It's an emotional roller coaster every single time. I check the analytics. There's new subscribers. I'm just like, oh my God, there are people on the internet who want to hang out with me, who don't think I'm a deranged lunatic and want to spend hours of their time with me on a bi-weekly basis. In what universe is this possible? I do not know. So I thought we would just get to know me better, so we were going to do a Q&A. I put up a post a few days ago asking for questions. I expected 5. You guys showed up in like the realest way. I have so many questions. I've gone through the questions. I've taken notes. A lot of them were very like in broad categories that I could lump together. And then a lot of them were pretty specific, and there were a few of them that were really fun. I told you guys, give me spicy questions, give me easy questions, give me juicy questions, and you guys showed up. Thank you so much for doing that. So, real quick off the top, because I mean to do this in every single video and I forget every single time, thank you so much to everyone who has supported me through Ko-fi. Ko-fi, you know, that's, again, I feel like those are one of those things that I should know how to say, but I don't know. So thank you for everyone who supported me through Ko-fi or Ko-fi, however you say it. If you guys make my whole day when that happens. That's really kind and that's really generous of you. I do leave the link in the description box. I don't talk about it, but it is in there, and there have been a few people who find it and buy me a coffee. So thank you. Thank you. The biggest gratitude to everyone who's done that so far. That's been incredibly kind and incredibly generous of you, and I see you and I appreciate you. So thank you. That's it. So let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Straight off the top. So a lot of people have asked about my Fiverr journey so far. And in the interest of time, because I can be incredibly long-winded and we don't want this video to go, I mean, my last few videos have been at the hour mark, over the hour mark. I'm not sure we want to do that again this week. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to reiterate the Fiverr journey. That is all in episode 1 of the podcast. It does not look as nice as this. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. What were lights? What was editing? What was like depth of field? Nobody knew. So the first episode does not look as nice as this, but the information in it is still amazing. And I spent like 20 minutes talking about how I've gotten from Fiverr Journey A to where we are right now. So in the interest of time, I will not repeat that story because it is very long and very involved. So for all of you who wanted to know how I started knitting and how I started spinning and how we got to the wool chaos, it is all asked and answered in episode 1 of the podcast. Thing 2, a lot of you had D&D questions, which, you know, perfectly okay. That means you're my kind of people. Again, in the interest of time, so I don't spend a half hour talking about my characters and my games. If you haven't watched any of the Vlogmas videos, I think it's day 7 of Vlogmas. It's literally called the one where we talk about D&D. I talk about my characters and my game experience at length. Like, that video is like 40 minutes long. It's 40 minutes long talking about my experience with D&D. You guys, I give you that hot goss. I even put screenshots of my character sheets for the 3 characters that I'm playing. I put fan art for, like, I commissioned art of Faynala Stormbright. There's art of Faynala. There's a mood board for Marigold. Like, literally everything you could ever want about my D&D characters. There's backstory. There's campaign juicy stuff. Everything you could ever want to know about my D&D characters is in episode 7 or episode 8. I will put the card. It's either in episode 7 or episode 8 of the Vlogmas video series. It's literally called the one where we talk about D&D. So yes, in the interest of time, because that will take me, if I go down that rabbit hole and start explaining to you the fantasy characters that I live in multiple times a week, we will not answer any other questions. So that is there. I'm sure you probably want me to talk about it again if you've watched it already, but there are so many questions, and if I do that, we won't get anything else answered. I am wearing my Flock Yeah t-shirt because Flock Yeah. So let's get started. So one of the question, I do have my e-spinner in front of me. I'm going to be spinning because I'm very fidgety. And if I'm not picking things up and showing it to you, I don't know. I might just start dancing. Like, we could be like, yes. That could be a thing we do, but I don't want to dance. So in the interest of keeping me in my chair, so I'm not like flying out of my skin, I do have my e-spinner in front of me. I'm going to be working on my shifting and spin that I'm going to be spinning for the rest of my life. So there we go. So if I look down occasionally, I'm looking down at my questions and I'm looking down at my e-spinner to make sure that I'm not doing anything ridiculous. But one of the questions that, or like, I guess the category of questions that popped up the most was about my full-time. You know what? I should have anticipated that might be noisy. I don't think I'm going to do this. Never mind. That might be too noisy. Do I get a support spindle? All right, we're going to try what happens here. But if I get fidgety, I might just have to go get a support spindle because I don't know if I can sit here for an hour and just talk and not do something with my hands. I literally spin during my D&D games. I spin or I knit. Maybe I could knit. I can't knit without looking at my knitting. I might grab a spindle. But anyways, one of the questions that popped up the most was about my full-time job, the thing that I do when I'm not being a wool witch. So I am a nurse, and people had questions about what kind of nursing I did. Let's see, I did take notes. I think the question that came up the most was what kind of nursing do I do? And then other people had questions about work-life balance, which you guys, when I figure it out, I'll tell you. So what kind of nursing that I do? In the interest of maintaining HIPAA, which is very important to me, and not doxing myself, and all of those things, because at the end of the day, there are a bunch of strangers out there, and I don't know how people behave. So I figured, I was in the shower this morning, and I was like, how do I explain this question as specifically as possible while also leaving it super vague? So in my full-time job, I am the director of nursing at an ambulatory surgery facility. And I don't like saying that out loud because I don't like saying that I'm in management because it feels huge and then I feel very small. But I'm the DON at a very busy ASC, which means I get to, how do I explain this? So I supervise a team of 27. I am the infection control preventionist at my facility. I am the risk management compliance officer at my facility. And I just get to walk around being in charge all day, which is exhausting. In addition to just being in charge all day and babysitting badly behaved doctors, because you guys, if you thought Grey's Anatomy was like a wild ride, you should catch surgeons in real life. They're terribly behaved 90% of the time. And in between managing and doing all the other stuff and the paperwork and everything else, I also circulate. So that was like my primary objective before I like transitioned into the DON role, was I was a circulating nurse. So I work in the operating room, I scrub. So I keep dialing back to Grey's, because when people ask me what I do, the easiest thing to explain is, have you seen Grey's Anatomy? So the person who like puts the sterile gown and gloves on, and then puts the sterile gown and gloves on the doctor and assists and hands the things off and ties off sutures and whatever. That's what I get to do in real life. So I scrub and I circulate, and the circulating nurse is the person who's in charge of maintaining sterility in the room and just watches like a hawk. So I am on 100 all the time at my job, unless I'm on break, because there's stuff going on and I got to see everything, which is exhausting. I love my job. I chose it. I love it. There are, just like everything else, I respect the ebbs and flows of the goodness in my community. And there was a lot of hard stuff going on, which I can't really talk about because HIPAA, I had a lot of really big projects going on at work over the last few weeks that have suddenly come to a close in the best possible way. Like literally the universe tied a ribbon on it and put a bow on it. And it said, congratulations, Tashi, for all the hard work that you did. It worked out perfectly. So now all the scary stuff is done. I'm not tempting fate. I'm not going to say that. The big scary thing that I was working on is past, because I'm not going to tempt fate and just go, all the scary stuff is done, because I'm going to go back to work and the universe is going to be like, you thought, and then it's going to be back. So the big thing that I was working on is over, but that is my job. I am an OR nurse. I'm the director of nursing. I walk around doing the best I can to maintain sterility and compliance, and make sure all my patients are happy. It is a very big job. And some days it feels like it's too big for me, but then I get feedback from the people that I work with and from the doctors that I work with, and I get feedback from patients, and it is incredibly gratifying. And I realize that I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. But every now and then I'm just like, wouldn't it be easier if I was doing something less big? But then sometimes I remember that the things that are given to you because you can handle them. And I chose this job. So every time I'm just like, I have to remember that I chose this job, and at any point I can unchoose it. And I'm not at the point where I'm ready to unchoose it. That's a word now. I'm not ready to unchoose it. I love the work that I do. I think it's vital work and I think it's important work. And I think every now and then my burnout is evidence that I'm working hard, which is, it is what it is. So one of the follow-up questions I got about nursing was about work-life balance. And I wasn't joking. When I figure it out, I'll let you know. I have not mastered work-life balance. The thing about being in a supervisory role is people have access to you all the time, because even when I'm not at work, if there is a crisis, I still have to handle it. So I have yet to figure out work-life balance. I keep threatening to change my number and not give it to any of the people I work with, which, categorically impossible. But I keep threatening to because it would be nice. What I try to do the most is when I'm not at work is not think about work, which again, with the type of job I have, is not always possible. But I work hard so I can play hard, and I play very hard, as evidence behind me. I work hard so I can play hard, and I need to play hard to help me continue to work hard. Like, I need to constantly be fulfilled by the things that bring, so much of my craft is rooted in joy, because I need to have the things that bring me joy so I can keep doing the hard things at my job. And that's how I balance it. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that right now. So the other thing that people had a lot of questions about was, again, D&D, which I did talk about. But one of the questions that I didn't answer that I thought was really interesting is, what's my favorite class to play? And y'all, I'm going to tell you, I will play any class that is rooted in charisma, because look at me. I need a max charisma score. I do not shut up. I get myself in so many social situations, and then my DM will be like, roll persuasion. And I'm like, joke's on you. I have a plus 13. And then I get to roll persuasion. Or it's like, or I talk myself in circles and then I end up lying. And then the DM's like, well, roll deception. And I was like, joke's on you. I got a plus 12 to deception. I need peak charismatic characters. One of my characters has very low charisma, and I keep getting myself in trouble. And my the people I play with are like, Tashi, this isn't one of your charismatic characters. Shut up. You can't keep doing this. Let the charismatic character do that. So I'm learning, especially since that other person is like a broody, like goth girl, so she shouldn't be talking. And yet I keep getting myself in trouble. And then my DM played a trick on me. She gave me a badge. It was a homebrew item that it's a sheriff's badge. And if I am pretending to be a member of law enforcement, I get advantage on deception checks. Which I keep doing, even though that character only has like a +2 to deception. So what is advantage when you have a +2? Like, who cares about advantage? But I keep going, it's okay, I have advantage, and then realizing I have a +2 modifier, and I'm just like, they got me again. So anyways, my favorite characters to play are warlocks, sorcerers, and paladins. I love spell casting. I love the spell casting mechanic in D&D, and I love characters that are rooting charisma. If I really, really had to pick, I think I would pick a paladin, although my paladin is multi-class with a warlock, and my sorcerer is multi-class with warlock, so that should just tell you that I love that little trifecta right there is my sweet spot. Also, because paladins and warlocks work really well together because of charisma-based spellcasting, but hexblade warlocks and oathbreaker paladins, for my like deep goth heart, like listen, I grew up in the 90s where I was listening to Linkin Park and like coloring my nails in with Sharpie and listening to Evanescence and hanging out in the dark and being like an angsty teenager. My hexblade warlock oathbreaker paladin character fills that need. Fills that void. The other question that I got was, have I ever DM'd? I want to. I just don't think anyone should let me. I don't think anyone should let me. I feel like if anyone's watched, I've gotten a few people who told me that if I was DMing, I'd be like a Bria Iyengar, which I think is the highest of compliments. Like, there's compliments, and then it's just like, you remind me of a Bria Iyengar compliments, which is just like, tell me more about how amazing I am. But also, if I was half the DM, not even half, there's no way. If I was like a 30th of the DM that a Bria Iyengar is, I think people would like playing with me. So I am eventually going to start DMing. I just haven't done it yet because it's scary. It's scary. It's a lot of power. And yes, it does appeal to my vanity. But also, I don't know if anyone should give Tashi that much power. So there's that. The other big question, there were 3 big questions about the hell kittens. Will you see one? I do not know. I thought about trying to grab one to bring one over here, but Tori's very mad at us. because she did something silly and we had to punish her and she hasn't gotten over it. So like if we approach her, she will run. And Minerva, I like to say Minerva is my Gryffindor cat, but she feeds off of her sister's energy. And so she's being a little bit weird right now because Tori's being a little bit weird right now. So if I tried to grab one and bring one over, she would either scratch me or like the second I tried to sit down with the cat, she would bolt. Minnie's very much a lap cat, so like if I'm sitting, she will instantly try to be in my lap, but she's very mad at us. So there are no hell kittens right now. Someone wants to know if they steal my yarn. They don't steal my yarn, but they do steal my fleece. Minnie especially loves raw fleece. I'm convinced she has a nest of it under our bed because she keeps taking bits of it and then I never find it. Minnie's obsessed with raw fleece. Thankfully, they don't care about my yarn. If there is a ball of it and they knock it over, they will mess it up because they've done that to me a few times. But I just don't leave cakes of yarn around where they can reach it. For the most part, if I leave like a cake of yarn on my dresser, they won't bother with it because I don't think they're interested. It's if it's like strings hanging off of something, they might bat it and then pull it down and then mess it up. They've probably ruined only like 3 skeins of yarn in the like years that I've had them and that I've been knitting. Probably only 3. They don't mess with my fiber. Yeah, they're not interested. They're interested in the fleece, but not interested in anything else. Am I worried about cat hair, which is another question. Am I worried about cat hair? I'm not. I'm not allergic to cat hair, so I don't care. I have pulled out cat hair out of my spinning because, you know, it's everywhere. It's all of our beds. It's all of our clothes. It's everywhere. So like, if I didn't want cat hair everywhere, I wouldn't have cats. And when I do sell fiber, it's clearly listed on my website. If you are allergic to cats, do not buy from me because it is a small space. My fiber is contained as much as possible, but the hell kittens get everywhere. So it is what it is. But I'm not worried about the cat hair. There's literally cat hair in everything. There's cat hair in my hair. I pull cat hair out of my hair. The other day I thought I had a gray hair and I was like panicking and then I was just like, that's Minerva's. It's not even mine. There's cat hair everywhere. I don't worry about that stuff. So that's that question. So those are the 3 big topics: nursing, D&D, and the hell kittens. At some point, I hope you will see them. But they tend to like hang out in the bed with Joshua when I'm filming. And then when I go back inside, then they're like, oh, Mom, you're back. Mom, you're back. I will say they're white with tabby markings. They're 5 years old. We got them when they were 12 weeks old. They're a bonded pair. They're litter mates, so we adopted them both at the same time. They still sleep in like a puppy pile like they did when they were kittens. I was convinced they would outgrow that. They haven't. They're going to be my babies forever. Every now and then I do contemplate giving them back. At this point, who do I give them back to? But every now and then I contemplate giving them back. I'm like, Joshua, go get your cats. And he's like, you go get your cats. And then they're doing bad things. And so I'm just like, why do we have these felines? And then they're like, and then they're cute again. And I'm just like, that's why we have them. So general questions have been answered. Let's go to the list. So the first question I got, which was a great question. I'm really glad I got this. So the first question I got was, tell us about your husband, how you met, how long you've been married, how does he feel about the fiber habit. So Joshua and I met when I was 17. I was how do I phrase this? I was a bit of a damsel in distress. And my husband has a thing for damsels. And so we met when I was 17. He was friends with my roommate's friend, is officially how we met. And so our friend circles overlapped, and then we started hanging out separately. And we've been dating since I was 18. And I'm going to be 33. We got married when I was 27. We dated for 10 years. And I wanted to wait really long because who you are as a child is not the same as who you are as an adult. And as much as I love Joshua with all of my 18-year-old heart, and as much as I loved him with all my 21-year-old heart, you're not the same person. And I wanted to make sure that we were sure that this is what we really wanted to do and that we had time to grow up and make sure that this is still what we wanted. So we got married when I was 27. We've been married for 5 years now, but we've been together for, 15? For 15 years we've been together. Joshua is ride or die. I tell people all the time, I wouldn't have made it through nursing school if it wasn't for him. Because I worked full time and went to school full time, which do not recommend. Nope. I mean, if you have to, do what you have to, but do not recommend going to nursing school with a job. I cried every day. The last semester of school, I threatened to drop out every day. I was literally at work just going, I'm not going back tonight, guys. We're done. I'm not going back. And every day I threatened to drop out until I was done. But I wouldn't have made it through nursing school without the partner that I have. I have a partner who is deeply invested in my happiness and my success, which is really nice to see. Yeah, I talk a lot about like the 5 love languages. My love language, this surprises no one, but my love language is words of affirmation because I cannot shut up. So my love language is words of affirmation, and the way I give love is I just tell people I love them. I'm constantly, I mean, all my friends know I'm like effusive with how much I tell people I love them, and that's the way I show love. The way my husband shows love is in acts of service. And so he's constantly doing things for me, and that's how he communicates that he loves me. And it's very nice to have someone who's deeply invested in your success and invested enough that they are willing to work with you and work at it. Yeah, so every time something happens with like YouTube or with like Starlight Blends, with any of those other things, he's like my biggest cheerleader. He was the one who encouraged me to start the YouTube channel. I think he wanted me to start the channel, so I stopped talking to him and started talking to other people. But he was the one who encouraged me to start the YouTube channel and has helped me through every stage. And whenever I'm distressed about something, even though he has no idea how to fix it, he's fixed all of my spinning wheels. Even though he has no idea what he's doing and has broken a few of them, has fixed all of my spinning wheels. He changed the motor on my e-spinner last night. Like, it is very nice to have someone who is deeply invested. I am very fortunate. I tell him every day, not every day. I tell him pretty often, but not every day. But I tell him pretty often how fortunate I am to have him. So that's that. How does he feel about the yarn habit? I don't know. He's not complaining. So I'm going to leave it at that. Every now and then he just goes, Tasha, you have too much stuff. And I'm like, oh, you're not wrong. And I try to like decompress and destash a little bit. But for the most part, I think he's happy that it makes me happy, and it keeps me out of his hair because I demand attention all the time. I am literally a cat. I just lay there and I'm like, tell me I'm pretty, tell me you love me, make much of me all the time. And so when I'm knitting and I'm spinning, I'm not doing that. So I don't think he minds it all that much. I got a question from, oh God, is it Yenta? Is it Gente? Gosh darn it, I know how to say her name and now I'm blanking. Her YouTube channel is Min Wolden, and the chaos on that channel makes me so happy. God, her name's Jente, and I know how to pronounce it most of the time, and now I'm forgetting. But her question was brilliant, and it was, what's your favorite cake? My favorite cake is red velvet cake. And not just any red velvet cake. It has to be red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting, and it has to be made with buttermilk and not with milk with vinegar, because I learned that someone on the internet lied to me. I was just like, oh, you can just add acid to regular milk and it'll work in the place of buttermilk and red velvet cake. It is not the same. It has to be made with buttermilk, and it has to have cream cheese frosting is what I was trying to say. That's my favorite cake. That's my guilty pleasure. It's what I get myself when I'm like having a low day and I need a quick pick me up. I go hunting for red velvet cake. So there you go. That's the answer to that one. This is a question from Lynn, and here's this question, like it stumped me a little bit. What would be your dream project if time, money, equipment limitations weren't an issue? So my dream project, if all of those things weren't an issue, would be to open a mill. That's what I really want to do. I really want to run away, start a homestead, get a few sheep. Okay, so here let's be specific about the dream. So I want to run away. And I want to start a homestead, but I don't want to be so far from a city that I have to drive 5 hours. So I want to be like 45 minutes from civilization. So far enough that like people will still come see me and I still have access to like cool stuff. But like, yeah, far enough and close enough. There we go. That made no sense. 45 minutes from a city, maybe in like the Hudson Valley. And I want to start a ranch. Is it a ranch? Is it a farm? I want a house, and then I want space. And I want like 4 or 5 sheep. And then I want a cottage mill in the backyard. Like I want like a separate stand where I can set up like a carder and a picker and stuff. And I want to make, I don't even want to spin the yarn. I just want to make prepped fiber. And I want it to be beautifully prepped. Like also I learned it was Skagit. Kind of like Skagit wool mill. Now I'm like, is it Skagit or Skagit? What? Skagit? Wool. Gosh darn it. And I want to like prep fiber for people. I want people to send me their fleece because there's so few wool washing and like mills in America. It's very sad. So I want to do that. That is my retirement plan, actually. Every now and then I'm just like, we're working towards the mill. On a smaller scale, what I really want is to learn to weave. I obviously do not have space for a floor loom in this place. And honestly, I don't have like That would be something that I definitely would want to save up for, and not just like drop a pretty penny on a loom like randomly like I do with everything else. So that would be the thing that I want to do, but we would need a lot more floor space, and I would need to have the money saved up for that. But I do want to learn how to weave. I do have my rigid heddle, which I almost never reach for. So maybe I should like do some more practice with my rigid heddle before I like add learning to weave on a floor loom to like my dream list of things. But yeah, that's on the list. But the big dream would be to run away and start a fiber mill and like play with like wool all the time, which I get to do now, but like more. So Jenna Pink Monkey had a question about me knitting left to right. And I'm going to preface this. I do not like when people say I knit backwards. I don't like that. I knit left to right. When people say you knit backwards, it implies that there's a right way and a wrong way to knit. And there is a conventional way. Listen, and you can get all up in my comments if you want to. I got nothing but time these days. Because there are a lot of people who hop up in my comments every now and then and decide they need to tell me how to do the things I do, which, try me. Go ahead. There are conventional ways to knit, but I feel like saying that people who knit left to right, and I'm not the only person that does it, a lot of people do it. Saying that I knit left to right and calling it backwards implies that it's the wrong way to knit. I knit in the way that makes me feel more comfortable. My right hand is not my dominant hand, and I could probably learn to use my right hand, but like why when I'm still making the same knit fabric as everybody else? So I knit left to right. Every now and then I reverse lace charts. I have to reverse lace charts and reverse cable charts so that they read the way that the pattern writer wants them to read. But for color work, as long as it's a symmetrical motif, I don't have to do anything, even though I'm knitting in the opposite direction that most people knit. But there are a lot of people who knit left to right. I switch increases and decreases so that they look the way that the pattern designer wanted them to do. But for the most part, you can't tell. Like, if I didn't tell you I knit left to right and I held up a bunch of my knit fabric, you probably couldn't tell that I wasn't doing it the exact same way as everyone else. And the reason I knit left to right is when I taught myself to knit when I was like 14 or 15, and I didn't know that there were knitting conventions. I picked up a knitting needle with my left hand because I'm left-handed, so that just made the most sense to me. And it wasn't until I started learning to knit garments that I realized that things were written to only, like the first time I got a chart actually is when it occurred to me, and I was like, wait, why is the chart going this way? And I was just like, oh, everyone knits going this way? Well, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to keep doing the thing that I do that works this way. I am a continental knitter. What that means for me is it means I tension my yarn in my right hand, and I hold my working needle in my left hand. When I purl, sometimes I purl English because that's just easier on my hands. I do wrap my stitches a little bit differently than people who knit right to left to make sure that all my stitches weren't twisted, because that was the thing that was happening to me, which helps when people can look at your knitting and read your knitting. Someone told me that I was twisting all my stitches, and I was just like, what? And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing that's not supposed to happen, and I had to like relearn how to wrap my working yarn. But yes, I knit left to right. I have no plans on changing. It works fine. I make cool things. You can't really tell. And even if you could, I'm the one wearing it, not you. So the second part of her question was, could I show how I knit? So I figured the thing that I'm working on right now that's the easiest to pick up and put down, and actually if I can knit this and keep talking, then maybe I will work on this, is my laneway pullover that I'm testing for Sarah Opie, which I will not show you because it's not a podcast, so you don't get to see it. But so I tension my working yarn in my right hand, and the way I tension my yarn is I wrap it around my pinky first, and then wrap it around my 3 fingers, and I hold it over my right hand. My right index finger. See, now that I'm trying to explain, this is why I don't teach things, guys, because I don't know how. Now that I'm trying to explain to you how I do this, I put my left needle through my stitch, and then I do like a little flick, like I rotate my right wrist so that the yarn goes over my left needle and then over. And then that's how I knit. So we'll do a few stitches. So I just go in. So the problem I have is I can't knit without looking. So yeah, I don't think I can knit and talk, but that's what I do. I just use my right hand to push my stitches up. I go in and I wrap. I'm not like super fast, but I'm also not like, the slowest of knitters, but I don't think we should be knitting for speed anyway. And this is just the way that's easiest for me. If I was knitting color work, I would tension 1 yarn in my right hand, 1 yarn in my left hand, and I would do English style for 1 yarn and continental for the other. I don't even know if that's in frame. My Lord. Okay. I'll try to hold it up a little bit more, which is really uncomfortable to do this, so I don't think I'm going to do this long, but that's how I knit. So there we go. I hope that answers your question. But yes, I do knit left to right. And it probably looks exactly the same as people who knit right to left. It's just I'm holding my needle and my working yarn in different hands. All right, so here's another question from that I thought was interesting. It's from Melissa Taylor, and she said, it seems like you really get into your hobbies and your crafts. How did you know? Did you have any hobbies before spinning, knitting, and D&D? So the first hobby that I like deep dived into was scrapbooking. If you are interested in any of my scrapbooking, I still have an Instagram account. It is at Precisely Tashi. I will put it here. It has pictures of all the, I'm trying to decide if I want to go get a scrapbook to show it to you. And I feel like I should, since we're talking about it. But it's also like deep in the abyss of my living room right now. So I'm looking around to figure out which one's easily accessible. I will get one for you. So the first hobby I fell head over heels in was scrapbooking. And it is a way of memory keeping. It's not like, I like to say it's not your grandma's scrapbooking, but it's a way of memory keeping. I'm very much invested in like writing the story of my life and taking notes on things and taking pictures and what have you. So again, all the pictures of things, if you're interested, are at Precisely Tashi. The easiest scrapbook I could get is I do this project every year that I didn't do last year. Now I'm just like, it feels sad that I didn't do it in 2022. But every year since 2016, I've done this project called December Daily, where I take a photo and write a story every day in the month of December. So like here's from my 2021 album. So like here's just like a picture of what my scrapbooking looks like. So there's a big picture here. There's some more pictures. There's some words. Oh my Lord, I just knocked my spinner down. So like here is another page, which is again just a big picture and some like thoughts, feelings, emotions. And it's just a way of me to like make sense of the life that I'm living. I don't always document the easy stuff. Sometimes things are hard. Here's one of my favorites because I like to do a lot of things with playing with color and texture and different like black and white photos, small photos. This is a very large album. This one's 10 by 8. I do have 6 by 8 albums. I have 9 by 12. I have 12 by 12. I have a bunch of stuff. But again, if you're interested at all in any of that stuff, you can go over to that Instagram account, which is still active, even though I have not posted anything in it in like 2 years because I have not really had the scrapbooking bug. So I haven't shared anything there. But if you want to go see like backlogs of things I've made, that is there. I did hyperfixate. There's a lot of scrapbooking supplies. A lot of the scrapbooking real estate is turning into spinning real estate. So I've been destashing scrapbooking supplies. I respect the ebb and flow of my hobbies, but I do know that scrapbooking is going to come back. So I don't want to get rid of all of it, but I am destashing the things that I'm not using right now. I do have a lot of scrapbooking stuff. So the scrapbooking space is slowly being turned into a space that I can share with my knitting and my sewing supplies. But that was the first thing I hyperfixated on. And that was an excellent question. Nicole Marie, I'm going to butcher your last name, sorry, wanted to know why I recommended the Landrum DT over the Ashford Kiwi to Taylor for her first wheel. And the reason I recommended the Landrum DT to Taylor for her first wheel, and this is the conversation that I had with Taylor, so this might not be the same for everyone, but this is the conversation I had with Taylor. The Landrum has ratios. You can change the flyer on the Landrum, so you are not stuck with the ratios that the Landrum comes with. It comes with different flyers. There's the medium flyer, the fast flyer, and one day your girl's working her way up to the lace flyer. And every time you get a different flyer, you can get different ratios. So when you get a wheel that has a fixed flyer, you are stuck, scare quotes, you are stuck with the ratios that the wheel comes with. So if you ever want to spin a thinner yarn on the ratios that your wheel comes with, you have to now modulate your spinning to change to get a thinner yarn. The Kiwi, I think the fastest ratio on the Kiwi is a 9-to-1, which would make me sad. My default ratio, I spin my default yarns at 15-to-1 or 18-to-1. So like a 9-to-1 ratio would make me sad. But the Landrum, you can swap out. There's, again, the medium flyer. The flyer that I live on is 12, 15, and 18. And then you can go all the way up to lace, which is like 26, 32, and 42. I am terrified of a lace flyer. I'm not there yet, but your girl's working your way up to it. But it does mean that I don't have to change out my wheel to get different ratios. I can just change out my flyer. And buying a new flyer is way more accessible than buying a new wheel. So I told Taylor if she ever wanted to work her way up to like lace spins and different types of yarns, that the Lendrum might be a better candidate because you can buy a different flyer for it. And she did her own research and she agreed with me. So that is the reason I told her that I would go with the Lendrum over an Ashford. The Ashford Kiwi, I think, only comes with 3 ratios, which for me feels very limiting. And for someone who wants to continue to learn and refine their technique, also feels very limiting. All the shacked wheels also have different whirls, so you can change the ratios. So I always recommend a wheel that you can change ratios on if you're going to buy your first wheel. If you're buying it new and you're making the investment. Now, if you're getting a wheel that's secondhand at a good price, then that's different. But if you're buying your wheel new and you're putting the money in, I think your money would go further on a wheel where you can change the ratios and have more options than a wheel that's a fixed ratio. That's just me. If you're getting a beautiful secondhand Ashford Traditional, do the thing, girl. Or person. I don't mean to assume that you're a girl. Do the thing, human. But if you're spending the money on something new, I just think your money would be better served on something that has ratios that you can swap out so that as you learn, and if you want to make finer yarns, you get faster ratios, you can keep doing that. That was my 2 cents, and she agreed with me. Brenda wants to know what it's like to live in Brooklyn / New York City. It is all I know. So we're going to preface it with that. It is all I know. It is the best and the worst thing. I sometimes am desperate for space, for like green space. Like I love a good hike. I love nature. I have to leave my city and go pretty far to find it. But also I love that Josh and I can just walk like 3 blocks and find a bar, find a brunch spot, find a dinner spot. If we get home from work and we don't want to do something, we can walk like 10 minutes and we're on a strip of, like we're on a street that has a million restaurants that all know us because we go to the same places over and over. It is easily the best and the worst thing, but it is all I know. I mean, the cost of living is what it is. It is just as expensive as people say it is to live here. I would like a larger apartment, which would, force us to spend more money. And so there's a trade-off. But it is all I know, and all my family is here. So that's what it is. I do like that I can explore. Joshua loves the food scene in New York City because he came from upstate New York where you had like a food scene that was this big. I would put my fingers closer together to indicate how large the food scene is, but I cannot get close enough to this, which is where we could just literally Google restaurants. We could be like, hey, we want to try Ethiopian, and Google Ethiopian restaurants and have like 20 options in 5 minutes. So there is that. I love the culture of my city. I love the pace of my city. Every time I leave here, I'm just like, people don't walk fast enough anywhere else. Like, people are just strolling and looking around. Unless you go to Times Square. I hate Times Square. You'll never catch me. Vogue Knitting Live was in Times Square, and I was so angry that I had to go to Times Square 2 days in a row. People just move here. I leave the city and I go to other places and everyone's just strolling and meandering and I'm like, oh my God, walk faster. Don't you guys have anything to do? I love the pace of my city. I feel like the pace of the city is what my heart beats to. Because it's all I know. I did like a lot of journaling at one point about living in this concrete jungle and what it means. My formative years are here. So much of how I move and I identify and how I operate is because this is where I was made. So. Well, we are going to leave. This is never where we planned on staying, so we're going to leave, and I will miss it every single day. Joanna Lee asked if I ever felt overwhelmed about my stash and if I would get through it. No, I will never get through this. I learned the acronym STABLE, which is Stash Beyond Life Expectancy. That is this, because you're seeing commercial yarn. You don't see everything else. You know who also doesn't see everything else? Me, because it's tucked in random places. So when Josh and I leave, and I have to pack it all up, it is going to be despairing to see all the wool I've tucked in all the spaces over the few years. This will outlive me, which is why I keep giving it away. I've gotten to the place where I'm no longer interested in like recovering the amount of money I've spent on it, and I just want it to go to people who will use it. So like every time I learn someone is a new spinner, I'm like, hey, can I get your address? Can I just send you stuff in the mail? And then I gotta like reason with all my friends who don't want to like comply and fight with them to get them, Cece, I'm talking to you, fight with them to get their addresses so I can send them stuff. But I would rather stuff go on to people who are going to use it, who are going to like I bought this fiber with the intention of it becoming something beautiful in its next life, and it's not doing that, sitting on my shelf. But yeah, no, my stash will outlive me. It will, unless I quit my job and do this full time, which is a segue to the other question I got. Like three people have asked if I was willing to quit my job and do wool person full time. Someone was like, do I want to do spinning workshops at yarn shops and for wool festivals? So friend who asked that question, I am not a spinning teacher. I interrupt myself all the time. I would be next to impossible to learn from. I'd be like, oh, you do this thing, but then also here's this thing that you should consider, and then go back to the first thing. I would be impossible to learn from. I do appreciate that you think I should be doing workshops. It is the charismatic demon in my chest that makes you think that. And I do appreciate that you think that, but I don't know if I could do workshops. It would be nice to be a wool person full time. I was actually at one point thinking about finding another job where I only worked 2 days a week, or even like 3/12s, like doing a 3/12 shift and then having 4 days off. But I would miss my people. I would miss the people I would work with, and I would miss my facility. I've been there for so long. But I do think the older I get, I am less interested in working as many days a week on my nursing job and transitioning to making like wool my like more. But also my job pays for the wool, and the wool is not making me enough money where I could so that's the thing. People who like quit their jobs and do this stuff full time, that's terrifying. Kudos to you. I don't know how you would do that. I would need to find a real balancing act where I'm not taking like a huge pay cut, and we're not anywhere near there yet. So I have to keep doing the nursing to keep paying for the chaos. But it would be nice to just go around and talk to people. I just don't know if I'm ready to do workshops. I'm not coherent enough. I feel like people would come see me for like the nonsense and not to learn anything. Which if you're gonna like pay to like see me, I want you to learn something. I don't know if people learn anything when I talk to them. I think they just enjoy that. So there's that. Michaela, I think I'm saying that right. Michaela had a question about my hair. So she wanted to know what my locks meant to me. And she wanted me to talk about my hair. So I missed my 4-year lockversary. So happy 4 years to me. It was last week. I've had my hair locked for 4 years. So this has been going on for 4 years. And before that, I was what's considered a loose natural. How old am I? I'm 32. Let's do some math. Oh, you guys get to watch me do math again. So I used to have my hair chemically straightened with a relaxer, which God, just thinking about that. We would go to like the Dominican hair salon like clockwork every 2 months, and they would slap this lye on your hair, which would literally burn the texture of your hair out and make it chemically straightened. And then every other week you would go get a wash and set, and they would blow dry your hair into submission. And I had chemically straightened hair up until the time I was 18. Because that's just what you do. And I think a lot of it has to do with respectability politics. I'm first gen, which I feel like I've shared, but I don't know if I have. I'm first gen. My parents are from Panama, and I think a lot of it had to do with respectability politics. And, the children, especially the female children of immigrants, you want them to comply and to look like they should be here. And so everyone in my culture had chemically straightened hair. I go to a church that is full of Panamanian people, and all the girls had blowouts all the time. And then I hit 17, and I was just like, I don't want to do that anymore. And so when I hit 18, I stopped chemically straightening my hair, and I grew it out. And it was really fun because you would see my hair, which was like half my texture that it grows, and then still the leftovers of all the years of processing. And every time my hair grew a little bit, I would cut it, and I would cut it, and I would cut it until eventually I did what's called a big chop, which is where you cut off all the textured hair. It is a very common journey that people with natural hair go through, which is where they chop off all of the chemically processed bits until it's just their glorious texture the way it grows in their hair. And I was what's considered a loose natural from 18 to 28. 18 to 28, so 10 years. For 10 years, I had a loose natural, and I had the big fro, and I would do the twist outs and the bantu knots, and I felt so much like myself. I felt real. I never The older I got, the more I realized that having chemically straight hair was never the vibe for me. And once I stopped doing that, I felt real. And I've had hair every color under the sun. I've had blue hair, I've had green hair, I've had red hair. And I always did it myself because I was wild. At one point, I shaved the side of my head and I went through like a full punk era. I had green hair with a side shave and I would tint my eyebrows turquoise. I was living the good life. And then I got into nursing school and my advisor went, nope, no more of that. And I dyed my hair back my natural hair color and I haven't had fun hair since. And then when I hit 28, and I've thought about locking my hair for a very long time, but the reason I didn't do it is so much of it is permanent. Like, I liked changing my hair too much. I liked being able to have like blue hair one day and then purple hair one day and then be able to do different styles. And I knew once I locked my hair, this is what it was. Like, unless I decided to cut it off and start over, this is what it was. So I decided that I was going to lock my hair and I was going to commit to 5 years. And if I didn't like it at the end of the 5 years, I would cut my hair off and I would go back. You guys, I feel real and I feel seen with my hair like this. So much of my perception of myself was rooted in what was on top of my head. And I feel more like myself than I've ever felt in my entire life. And it's hard to explain to someone who's had the same hair their whole life and who has not had hair decisions made for them. So many of my hair decisions were made for me before this one. So it's nice to be able to make a hair decision for myself. And honestly, when you feel like, I feel like me, and I feel like when you feel like yourself, you move different. So like you operate different and you like take up space differently because you feel more like yourself. Now my hair is 100% a political statement. Like everything else about being a black woman in America is a political statement. So I've had people try to like tell me what I should do with it. I've had people tell me that my hair wasn't tidy enough or my hair wasn't this enough. And to those people, I will not say what I say to them online because it's kind of rude and you guys don't know that version of me, but I have very choice words for those people. I am living my best life with my locks. I don't really style them that often. Most of the time I pile them on top of my head like this and then I just keep going or I wear them down, but I'm living my best life. Now, I will say when it comes to things like cultural appropriation, I'm not going to preach to people, especially to strangers. If you are my friend and you have questions about what I think and we are friends, then I will engage in that sort of conversation. But with like strangers on the internet, it's not worth it. It's not worth my peace. It's not worth my joy. But yeah, I love my hair. Joshua likes it a lot. I was really worried that he would not like it because he's seen me go through Joshua met me when I had chemically straightened hair. He's seen me go through so many iterations and I think he likes this just as much as I do. So there we go. Someone wants to know, outside of my home, what's my favorite place to spend time in the city? And it is a coffee shop because I'm basic. Just give me a good coffee shop where I can get a lavender latte. I'm basic. A lavender latte, a thick crusty croissant that I can sit and read a book, or I love a green space. I'm a druid in real life. So I like all the parks. I recently discovered, now I've never been to the Botanic Garden because I'm allergic to bee stings and I was terrified that I was going to be walking into like a swarm. But we went to the Botanic Garden a lot last summer and that's my new favorite place. So once it warms up again, that's where you're going to find me. I'm going to take my spinning wheel to the Botanic Garden, and do that. So now we're like running out of time. So now I'm like going through these questions and trying to find some really juicy ones because there were so many, and honestly, we should do this again at some point, but there were so many and I talk so much and it's very hard to get to all of them. I have a question from someone who wants to know if I was neurodivergent, and I will say, I don't know. The older I get, the more I've been thinking a lot about whether I have ADHD or not. And this is from a clinician, like someone who understands how diagnostics and stuff work, not because someone thinks being neurodivergent is trendy. The older I get, the more I wonder if I have ADHD. A lot of like the classic markers and all those things are like very present. And if I don't have ADHD, sometimes I wonder if I have like a sensory processing disorder. I've actually been thinking about looking for care, not in the interest of medication, because I don't think I need medication, but more in the interest of understanding how my brain works and my thought processes so that when I get trapped in thought spirals, I can work my way out of it. Because on top of that, I do have generalized anxiety disorder and I have panic disorder. So, having anxiety and then being trapped in thought spirals and then having ADHD is a really fun combination to be in. And so it would be nice to have some sort of like coping mechanisms and things that I can do when I get trapped in those spaces, because it's not a good place to be in. So there is that. So I don't know is the short answer. And I'm very interested to find out. But I couldn't like really think about that when I had the big work thing going on. And now that the big work thing's going on, I could do a lot more like self-care. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do this year, was go figure that out and see if I do have ADHD. And then see if I can get that worked into my like treatment plan and my maintenance plan. So I can make sure that I'm taking care of myself, and so I can make sure that I am the highest self that I can be. So there's that. Someone asked what kind of music I listen to. And again, because I am basic, I listen to a lot of singer-songwriters. Sarah Bareilles is one of my favorite musicians. I've been to see her in concert multiple times. Joshua and I went all the way to the wilds of Connecticut to see her in concert once. She's one of my favorites. I like a lot of what you consider basic millennial music. So I was raised on like 70s Motown, and like Kirk Franklin. That's what we listen to at home. So I'd missed out on a lot of like the 90s R&B and all that stuff. So I'm slowly discovering 90s R&B now. But I do like softer music. I like background stuff because I'm constantly fidgeting and doing things. So I don't like music that's going to be like front and center. So I like music that could be like background soundtracks to what I'm doing. What was I listening to the other day that I was just like, I'm late to the part? Oh, I really like Billie Eilish, which I didn't think I would. So there's that. But my Spotify is very like tailored to sad girl music. One of my D&D party members is making me a sad girl playlist because she was like, you don't know real sad girl music until you like know these artists. So she's making me a sad girl playlist. I do listen to like real sad girl music though. I do listen to like Regina Spektor and A Fine Frenzy. It's real sad girl music. And I'm getting a sad girl playlist tailored just for me, which I'm very excited about. Phyllis had a question that made me laugh. She said, you seem very tall. I am very tall. I'm 6 feet tall. Were you an athlete in school? I have the dexterity of a goldfish. No, I can't walk in a straight line without falling. I was not an athlete. Everyone kept telling me my height was wasted on me. I've been this tall since I was like 14, but I don't have any grace or any of those things. I tried to run track, and it was just because I was just like, how hard is it to run in a straight line? Very hard. So no, I didn't play any sports. All this height has been wasted on me. It just allows me to pretend to be graceful, but also like if you look at me too hard, I will tip over in the opposite direction. So no sports for me. Someone asked, why don't I sleep? I have terrible insomnia. And a lot of it is a remnant from nursing school. So I worked full-time and went to school full-time for 3 years. And when you work full-time and you go to school full-time and you go to nursing school full-time, you learn to adapt to 3-4 hours of sleep because that is all you're getting. The nights that I got more than 4 hours of sleep was a good night. And so my brain is broken from doing that for so many years. But the other thing that I plan on doing now that I have time is doing a sleep study and trying to figure out if I can get myself past sleeping 5 hours a night. Because literally and the other thing is I have an excellent circadian rhythm. So I wake up at the same time every day, whether I have to go to work or not. So I've been waking up at 5:30 every day for years, no matter what time I go to sleep. So even on weekends when I try to like, pretend to be a cool kid and like stay up later than I should, I wake up at 5:30. It's a combination of my brain being broken from having to be conditioned to surviving on 4 years of sleep for years, and then my circadian rhythm. Guys, daylight savings time ruins me. Like I'm not well. I oversleep for weeks and then I undersleep for weeks. And it's a very weird place to be in. I hate it. I need America to find like set time and stay on it because it's terrible. So that's that. I'm going through this. I think I have like maybe 10 more minutes of film time. So I'm trying to find a few good questions that we can answer. So there's some that I had stars on that I skipped, but now that I'm like going through them, I'm like, let's do 2 more. That's what we'll do. We'll do 2 more. Okay. So a few people asked, what is my all-time favorite thing that I've ever knit? And I think my favorite thing that I've ever knit, of the things, I have such few finished objects. So it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of whips, but I have such few finished objects. But going off of the things that I finished, I think my favorite thing that I've ever knit is my Harlow hat, because it's all hand spun. And some of the yarn in it is hand processed. So it's hand processed and hand spun. And it's brioche. So it's like super squishy. It literally feels like wearing a warm hug on my head. The same person who asked that asked the meanest, Kelly, this is the meanest question I've ever gotten in my entire life, and we have to answer it. If you could only knit but never spin, or only spin but never knit, which one would you choose? I am a capital S spinner and a lowercase k knitter. I would spin. 100%. If I could only spin or knit, I would 100% spin. I knit because one, I had to do something with all this yarn. And I like the idea of finished objects, but finished objects are more like a concept to me than they are to like an actual thing. So I would 100% spin because then I could process wool and I could spin it, and then I'll just give people the yarn. If I really had to choose between spinning and knitting, it's a no-brainer. I'm choosing spinning. And then I guess the last question, where did I find it? I had the last question and then I instantly got, the last question was, will I ever host a cow? Well, friends, I'm hosting one right now. I'm currently hosting a cow with Casey of Young Folk Knits, and it's the Collar Me Happy cow, which is literally just make something for your neck. It could be a cowl, it could be a collar, it could be a shawl, it could be whatever. We are both knitting the Coffee Run Collar by Samantha Guerin. So there's that, but you can literally knit whatever you want. The hashtag is Collar Me Happy Cow on Instagram, and Casey does have a Ravelry page, a Ravelry group page, and they're going to be prizes. So I'm hosting a cow right now. I didn't mention it in the last podcast because it was so long, so I didn't mention it, but I have started working on my Coffee Run Collar, and you'll see it next week when I film the next podcast. So I'm hosting a cow right now. Maybe we'll do a sweater cowl. I'm actually doing, someone else was asking about a spin along. So I'm going to be doing a sock spin along in March. I'm going to be doing a sock spin along in March because I've spun multiple yarns for socks, but I've yet to find a sock yarn that I love. And so I haven't finished any socks, but I have a really good idea of what I want to do. I'm currently spinning Cheviot on support spindles for socks right now, which I'm enjoying. And I'm thinking that I'm going to card some Cheviot and add some mohair and add some silk and add some long wool and make a sock blend. And I'm going to spin that in March. So we are doing a sock spin in March. I didn't tell you guys because I didn't realize March was right around the corner. But that's what I'm going to be doing in March. You can join me if you want, or you can just watch my sock spin adventures. My plan is to spin the yarn in March and hopefully knit socks in April. But I'm saying hopefully because I'm still on the second sock of my striped socks, so hopefully. So that's the plan. But I am doing a sock spin in March. But I'm currently hosting a knit along right now. It started February 14th. Today is February 25th, so we're 11 days into it, but it's going to the vernal equinox, which is March 20th. So if you want to join us, there's still plenty of time. So that's it, guys. That's the Q&A. There were a lot of questions in here about like spinning knowledge, and I didn't really want to do that for this one. It was more about like, let me talk about myself for an hour so that if you're new here and you want to know like who I am and how does it like inform my fiber choices and what I do with my hobbies. So I did not answer any like spinning questions. I will say the question that I get the most often is I would like resources for beginners. And to those people I say, I have a whole video on the podcast, not on the podcast. I did it during Vlogmas. I did a whole video during Vlogmas called YouTube University for Hand Spinners, How I Learned to Spin Online. So I'm not going to be answering the what would you do if you're a beginner question because I answered that for 45 minutes. So you can go to video 2 of Vlogmas. It was the second episode. Even if you don't want to watch the video, there are a litany of links in the description box of that video of everyone I watch, every class I took, every podcast I follow, and how I learned to spin online. So I'm not going to be answering like beginner spinning questions. I'm just going to keep pointing people to that video in the interest of time and also in the interest of labor because this is work. Yeah. So in the interest of time and in the interest of making sure that I have like emotional room to do all the stuff that I want to do, I'm not going to be answering like how did I learn to spin online or what do I recommend videos. I'm just sending, and people who've been getting these comments, they already know, I'm just sending people to that video because I've already filmed it and it has answered that question better than anything I could do right now because I practiced that one and I wrote everything down and so everything's there. So all people who are asking for beginner spinning tips online, go watch that video. It's already there. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed getting to know me a little bit better. Maybe we'll do another Q&A in like a few more weeks because this was kind of fun. You guys really came through with the questions. I really enjoyed answering them. I thought I would be like fidgety sitting here, but then I realized I talk with my hands. So I don't know if I was that fidgety. We'll see. But that's it. I will see you next week for a traditional podcast where we will talk about what I've been knitting. I have been knitting a lot. And we'll talk about what I've been spinning because I've actually been spinning a little bit. But that's it for now. I love you. Go make something fun today.